What's up, guys? Bryce Kenny here, current owner of this 1970 Mustang Mach 1. Very proud owner of this Mach 1. However, the first owner is this man right here, Dan Sipple, my uncle. He and my grandfather actually bought it in 83.
Yep.
Is that right? 1983?
Yep.
And I bought it from him when I was going into high school in 2003. So it's essentially been in my family, our family, for now 35 years. And it's going to be in our family for 35 more. But how'd you actually find this thing? I mean, 1983, did you always know you wanted a muscle car? Where'd you actually locate this one?
Yeah, I was after school one day. I was on a bus, and I happened to look out. I saw the Mustang. I thought, man, yellow, black stripe, Cobra Jet hood. This baby looked right. Loved it. Went home, already on the phone with Dad. I gotta get back from work. Really busy. And so I was like, okay, I'll wait till you get home. Couldn't stand it. We went the next day, went and looked at this Mustang. He loved it. And I was like, I just fell in love with it. He went in, talked to the guy, made an offer on it. He sold it.
Yeah. What did Grandpa like about it? What kind of caught his attention?
Well, it was a nice muscle car. It was actually, it looked good. It didn't have a huge motor, So I just thought for the first car, and we got it for the right price.
Yeah.
Because we could have, paid a lot more for this car back then, but $1,800.
Yeah.
It was a steal.
It's a California edition, 1970 Mustang Mach 1. So the back seat actually folds down, and you can put the surfboard in through the trunk, and it goes all the way up to the dashboard, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
Which is really cool. So I don't know how it ended up in Berea, Kentucky. But it ended up in Berea,
Don't
Kentucky.
know that history.
Yeah. So my grandfather, his father, Doc Sipple, grew up on old abandoned airstrips, or at least started his drag racing career on old abandoned airstrips, souping up Chevrolets and Oldsmobiles, right? Tinkering with that. How was it when all of a sudden he found a Ford like this? Did he have a Ford versus Chevy connotation or preference or anything like that back then?
No, I mean, at the time when I got this car, they were just starting to get into drag racing again. Well, with my older brother, he had a Ford truck that he was racing. I mean, he had a 12-second Ford truck, with the 390. So he was dealing with that, but my dad was driving a Corvette, a little 1974 Corvette that he was racing. So I kind of fell right into that same category of, hey, muscle car. No, I like the Ford. And he was like, that's cool. I was the only guy that stayed with the Ford.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of seemed to stay with the Chevrolets, but yeah. No, it wasn't one over the other.
Okay. Well, this has a 351 Cleveland motor in it. Well, it did. We're getting it rebuilt. And it had FMX transmission. We kept it, even when I bought it and we got it repainted and things, we kept the canary yellow because that was authentic to the car. Kept the FMX transmission because it was authentic to this car. And we're trying to keep this Cleveland motor as authentic as possible, but there's been a lot of upgrades and a lot of manual effort that went into those heads and everything, even with the cylinder work, everything like that, with Dan and my grandfather that actually put that together. How many hours do you think those heads that you've got that we were able to salvage in this rebuild, how many hours do you think you probably have with those heads alone?
Every bit of 24 to 25 hours.
Each?
Yeah, probably each head. So probably 50 hours plus. I mean, porting and polishing. I mean, it was every day after school. I mean, my dad made me do it, I mean, I had a little Dremel tool in there, cutting really careful. We always took the intake gasket, and I wanted to line it up with the intake. So we made our little bitty, our little bitty marks on it. Man, I just cut really careful, and then we polished her up and did it on the intake and on the exhaust. And when you're 16, 15, 16, I didn't scare me, didn't bother me. I just kept on working. And so,
was there anything that Grandpa didn't let you do? Like that was his thing?
Not really. He made me put my hands on everything, which I think is different today with a lot of things with parents even. But, no, he wanted me to, if I was going to fail, I was going to do it myself. And he wasn't willing, and he was willing to take, what came with that. I mean, if I made mistakes, we'd just go on and do something different or get it, or that's the only way he was. My dad was that way. Hands on. You got to do it. Get your elbows greasy. You know what I'm saying? So
when did nitrous start to kind of come on the scene? That was in the 80s, late 80s?
Yeah, I was in high school. I had the car. I was taken to the drag strip.
Yeah, but nitrous wasn't like a thing at that point.
Not at all.
I mean, it was just kind of starting to come in. Grandpa didn't know much.
Nobody knew. We had power adders is pretty much what they say now. Okay. But the power adders really wasn't big back in between 83s and 87. And so I mean there was nitrous obviously, but the research my dad did, they just never went that way.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to really read it, learn about it. Young, Dad, what about this nitrous stuff? He had no clue of what this stuff was or what it's going to do. And I got it for Christmas. I got it as a gift. So it was really pretty
Santa
cool.
was good to you that year.
Oh, really good.
Nitrous kit.
Nitrous kit. 125 horsepower shot.
And what did this car run in the quarter mile without nitrous?
With the 308s, I was running low 14s.
Okay.
I put the 411s in the gear, dropped to 1340s right away.
Okay.
Threw the juice to it. I was running 1240s,
really?
1250s, yeah, on slicks and
on a 351 motor.
On a 351 motor, FMX transmission, shift kit, 410 gear, 411 gear. I mean, it was pretty tough. And at that time, I was the man.
Yeah.
16, 17-year-old Mustang that looked super cool.
Yeah.
Running low 12s. Yeah.
That was
good
that's
times.
Moving.
That was
and
moving. Back then,
it was even like a safe speed though, because you said that this engine loved nitrous.
Loved it with the big heads.
Yeah.
It just. I mean, take a full second off your quarter mile times. It loved it.
Yeah, and you said I remember you saying at one point that the next time that you actually rebuilt the car or had the pistons out, the motor even looked better after you guys had run nitrous on it for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that entirely. All I'm going to say is in this rebuild that we are just doing, I've got skirts off of the pistons coming apart and falling out of the motor when I was pulling those pistons out. So
the motor's been together for a long time.
It wasn't me.
I had that motor into a front engine dragster at one time.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Were you driving that too?
I was driving that too.
See, that's your fault.
It could be.
This whole rebuild project too, it's been a constant battle of like, well, Bryce, why'd you tear this up? Or, Dan, that's your fault. I didn't tear it up in high school. I babied this thing. You're the one that was rough on it. But what's nice though, it's really cool because we've got the motor out of it. Everything was salvageable. I mean, it's going to get all new guts, pistons, cam. We were able to save the crank. I think we're going to have to get it turned and things like that. But saving all that, and the heads. Most importantly, I was afraid of losing the heads because they looked pretty bad whenever we got this motor apart. But I wanted to save that just because of the history and the memories that as a family we've created with that motor and all the time that Dan and my grandfather even put into those heads like he was talking about. And thankfully we were able to salvage everything in that regard. And so when this motor goes back together, we're going to take a little bit of compression out. So you ran about 11-to-1 compression in this thing. Yeah. We're going to drop it to about 10-to-1 most likely. So knock a little bit of power out. But I've never driven this car of all the years that I owned it after I bought it and restored it. I never drove it with the 411 gears in the rear end like he's talking about. We always had the 325s in there. That's what we just yanked out of this thing yesterday and put 411s in it.
This thing has been leaking on me since I owned it, thanks to Dan. But I think it's because that gasket was broken the entire time. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Hey, I wonder if you do the same thing to your truck when you lose the first round at World Finals.
That hurts. Second round.
So we're going to take a little bit of compression out, take some pressure off the motor. Hopefully it makes the motor that much happier in the long run. But then we're going to make that the rear end gear much larger so that it's still going to be a blast. And it doesn't need to be a highway car anymore. This thing, I can baby it, continue on taking it down that path, but anything 0 to 75 miles an hour is going to be a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Really quick.
We're going to keep the FMX transmission the same. We're going to send it off and get it serviced and worked on. But we're going to keep the shift kit in it. Stall set in that FMX about 2,800 RPM, I think. So really, it makes it really pulls a lot more out of that motor. I felt like when it was at that 2,800, because most people don't have the stall set that high on an FMX transmission.
No, it's around 1,800. But with the 4-barrel heads, that really was a disadvantage for this motor because with the 2-barrel, 4-barrel head configuration. With the 2-barrel, everybody wanted that low-end torque. The big, it's actually the 4-barrel heads is based on a big block. And so it kind of gets into, that's even when you get into the 351 mediums and different types of things when you get to 351. Yeah. And the Cleveland head, 4-barrel head, is actually almost like a big block head. And that's how much flow it had. But it really hurt you on bottom end. So a lot of people, sometimes even the Ford gang would kind of pick on me like, why do you have a 4-barrel head on that thing? Why don't you port and polish and open up a 2-barrel head? But with the 2,800 stall, what that does is it actually really kind of puts you on top of that curve to where your cam and pistons and that big head works. So I didn't have to worry about it. We took the converter and had it loosened up a little bit to where I could actually stall it up to 28, man. And when that thing let go, when that converter grabbed, man, it's gone. So
what was one of the coolest memories you've got of this car? Whether it's at the racetrack, whether it's because you dated your now wife, you dated in high school, just like I dated my now wife, Mackenzie, in high school. You went on dates in this thing with Vonda. And I went on dates in this thing when I was in high school with Mackenzie. The passenger door doesn't even shut correctly because Dan kept dumping Vonda in high school over and over and over. He wasn't the good guy. He was a nice guy, but so Vonda would get out of the car, and every time he'd break up with her, she would get out there and slam the door shut. So the hinge is just a little bit off in this car, in the passenger car. But you know what? Anytime it clicks, whenever someone gets out of the passenger car, it makes me think of Dan and Vonda. That's so I'll take the bad with the good memory. But what's kind of one of the best memories you've got of this car?
I've got some great memories, but I will tell you one of the funnest things I ever did. I would not recommend this at all. But one night I was running around McDonald's, and of course I had the nitrous kit, and it's kind of really cool because you could just hit the button. And at that time they didn't have things hooked up to the ignition, so they actually had or the throttle. They had it right there on the steering wheel, so I could hit it whenever I wanted to. I could kind of cruise around, and I'd hit that button, 124 horse, just like that. I'd just trip the wheels, have fun around McDonald's. And so I actually covered McDonald's in smoke one night.
Okay.
Really, really bad. I mean, they thought it was on fire.
Oh my God.
They actually called the fire department. Absolutely had a blast. I had it smoking. I had a line lock on it, and so I could lock the front. I could lock the front wheels and just sit there and just have fun without getting too crazy and sideways. Literally buried McDonald's in smoke. I left, did not come back because the fire. I passed the fire trucks on the way down.
Gosh.
Police officer. Yeah, do not recommend that. But it's just a high school memory that I absolutely loved. I mean, I have so many in this car. You know,
the thing you guys used to get away with without social media.
Yeah, this stuff didn't get recorded. My wife actually, I had a curfew when I was in high school, but most of the time she got dropped off early because I was usually doing some street racing. Around 12 o'clock at night. So, you know, but it was kind of one of those things. You talk about memories about things like that. I mean, you know, my wife I was never late getting home because I was usually dropping her off early and racing and going home.
Yeah.
So, I kept my gas tank full in high school though.
Oh, that's good. I bet. Well, I think I remember absolutely filling the school parking lot myself with plenty of burnout smoke. We had a team that was coming down and staying with the soccer team in high school. It came down from New York. They'd never had cheer wine, so anyone from North Carolina that likes the cheer wine soda, it's a North Carolinian thing. They love cheer wine. Well, and they brought us a bunch of maple syrup from New York. I thought that was a Canadian thing, but the one thing, they kept looking at my car and they were like, well, "What can it do? What, you know? Let me show you what it can do." So I flipped that line lock on and rolled my own smoke. But I feel like I failed because I clearly didn't do a good enough job to get the fire department called, thinking the high school was on fire. But that's okay. So, but that's what's nice about this, and that's what Dan and I we've gone through this rebuild process. Is what we talk about too. It's the actual material possession is fun to have. You know, and it's fun to be able to look at and appreciate, and the craftsmanship that has gone ahead of it. But what I love the most are the memories that have been made with our family owning it for as long as we have together. And then also the memories that I believe we'll continue to make with this thing. And so that's really the motivation behind this entire project is, can we get it to a point, and can we get the motor right, the transmission right, the rear end, everything about this car, can we get it right? It's never going to be perfect. I don't care if this car is ever perfect. That would take the fun out of it for me, right? But to me, can we get it to a point where we can never limit ourselves on the type of memories that can get created with this? Because if you do this and it just sits and rots in your garage and does nothing and never creates memories, to me, that's a waste of money. But so our whole goal with this is to create as many memories as possible. But we sure miss my grandfather, Doc Sipple, his dad out here with us. You know, this whole time there'd be times when we've been working on the car and we could almost picture him in the corner sitting there saying, you know, "Dan, did we put that? We did put that in that motor, didn't we? Wow, Bryce, do you know how nice this Cleveland motor? Do you really understand how nice this car is?" But he just would have loved this whole project of rebuilding this even more than we do now, and he would have had probably the most fun, even though we wouldn't have made him, you know, climb up underneath the car or anything like that. Right. But that's again, that pulling those memories out, every bolt, every screw, everything that's in this car.
Busted knuckle.
Busted knuckle? Yes. Yeah. There's probably plenty of skin samples
on the
left
car.
underneath these, especially those headers, man. Those old rusty headers that we couldn't figure out how to get the transmission around the other day. But anyway, it's such a blast. It's a privilege that this is in the family. It's a privilege that we can kind of keep this in the family and continue those memories being built.
Even though the motor is coming apart, we've got some work to do. I've got the 4th generation of this bad boy that is loving it. What do you think of Daddy's car?
Dad's car is so awesome.
Oh, right. You gonna drive it?
Yeah.
Do you want to drive it with Daddy?
Yeah.
All right. You want to do some burnouts?
Yeah, we had to do we had to do some music.
Listen to music. Do you know what a burnout is?
Yeah, it's not working key.
It's not working. That's right. It's gonna be working soon, though, isn't it?
It's been fun getting all this stuff out.
Loving it.
And more to come.
Yeah.
Right? So pretty soon we'll have the motor back together, all those new guts in it. We'll have the transmission rebuilt. The rear end has the 411 gears in it. So at some point, I got to come back up here to Kentucky, and the rebuild, putting it all back together is our next step. So stay tuned for more videos, and stay tuned for really just the process, and hopefully don't just follow the rebuild project that we've got going on here, but the memories that we're going to be making after this thing's back together is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to roast those tires, aren't we?
We sure are.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.